Okay. So these are the 6 domain we have. So straightforward 6 domain we have in the cloud. Okay. Now coming to the examination part. I mean, yes, now we are aware about, but what are the core area we have to actually focus on to ensure that we are able to crack the examination, right? Now coming to the examination part, right? So the CCSP examination, right? Right now, if you compare it from the CISSP examination, so it's not a CAT-based examination where the computers are basically going to adapt the way you are actually going to provide the response. Yes, Mr. Ankod, it is available in the same documentation. I will share this documentation with you all, so you can also go through the subtopics. Okay. So for now, understand there that this examination is not very much similar to the CAT-based examination available in the CSSP. It means here the questions are not going to be adapted based on the response you are providing. So it is going to be straightforward. It's not going to be hard as compared to CSSP examination. Okay. But yeah, the length of the examination itself is one of the headache. 4 hours to concentrate, 4 hours of duration is itself a very challenging thing. So the length of the examination is right now is 4 hours. The total number of questions you will be facing is 150. Okay. And all of the questions are going to be multiple choice. Some of the questions are going to be mix and match as well. I mean, you may get some questions where they had provided you some options and you have to match the correct option there. Like might be they will provide you the question like what are the laws and the countries associated with that. So you may have to match that one. So some 1 or 2 questions like that you may get there. To pass the examination, you have to obtain 70%. I mean, 700 points out of 1000 points you have to obtain to pass the examination. Right. And right now the exam availability is English. And apart from that English, we have Chinese, German, Korean, Japanese, Spanish. I hope then some of you are not going to try these languages. Okay. But again, it is not going to make any impact here. Like in case of CSSP examination, we have a certain impact over that. I mean, if you're going to attempt the examination in another language, the total number of questions are going to be 250. But here, the questions are going to be whether you are giving in English or any other language. Right? No, not a. See, mostly all the questions are going to be kind of scenario based only. But the good thing is not going to be very long. Right, so it's going to be a straightforward based on a specific situation, but the scenario is not going to be long. They might provide you one simple 1 or 2 liner question, and from there you have to evaluate and give the response there. But if you're thinking that there is a certain a very long scenario which you have to first analyze, and accordingly you have to give the response, so it's not going to be like that. That is a good thing. Now, when you are going to attempt the examination, you have to find the nearest Pearson VUE testing center, which is authorized to do the ISA square examination. Right. So you have to find that testing center around you. And definitely remember that you can't give this examination or any of the examinations so far right now from your home. Previously, ISA square tried to do that, and they had tested the feasibility of the ISA square examination from home online. But because of some issues detected there, they had to stop that particular option. So you can do the examination only by reaching to the nearest Pearson center around you. Okay. Now these are the weightage given there for the each of the domain. And you know, the good thing is that the highest weightage is given to the cloud data security, which is a more technical concept. So, and rest of the domain, if you now can see, Like the first domain weightage is 17%, second domain is 20, third and fourth again is 17%, fifth domain is on 16, and the last one is on 13. So might be if you feel that some of the domain like legal and risk and compliance you're not actually very comfortable with, you can ignore it because that is not going to impact your exam result. Although I know that what kind of questions you will get from this particular domain, so that is not going to be a challenging domain for anyone of you. It means if you can focus on first four domain, rest two domains is going to be little bit easier actually, you can say. Okay. So these are the, the topics which is basically the given there in the same documentation. Again, this documentation from the ICS Square website itself there. So you can also download this information and go through. Otherwise, I will share this definitely this documentation. Okay. So this is what now another important aspect of this examination is. Remember, we are trying to see. Remember here the questions are not going to be domain based. I mean, you will not. One important thing is that yes, you have to ensure that you are giving the proper response, but they're looking to get 700 points out of 1000. So they're not looking to check whether you passed in a certain domain or not. So it's not going to evaluate the domain based, right? All you have to just obtain the 700.70% to pass the examination. Okay. But yes, due to some reason, if you're not able to crack the examination, they may provide your performance domain wise. So might be like in the first domain, they will provide that you are under the proficiency, or might be you had met the proficiency condition, or might be beyond that expectation. That is just to ensure that you know that in which domain you are weak, so you can work on that domain and improve your information and reattempt the examination. Right now, just for your information, again, there is an offer going on the ICS Square website. You can visit, and according to that offer, that you can, if you book examination now, you will be getting one more examination attempt if due to some reason if you're not able to pass. Right, so just check if that particular offer making sense for you, because I understand that this offer is not for a very long time. From time to time, they are coming with the offer. Like I think this offer is for this month and up to May. So just check if it is feasible for you all or not. Oh, okay. So now another thing, important point we have that when you are going for the examination, right? See, remember your goal is to get the CCSP certification, right? Which is Certified Cloud Security Professional. But when you're going for the professional examination, which is CCSP, so for the CCSP examination, there are two conditions. The first condition is pass the exam. That is a very important condition. I mean, that is the first thing you have to do. Once you're done with that, and if you're looking to get the professional certification, in such case, you have to make one more condition, and that is you have to endorse your experience either from the SSPAR itself or might be any professional member already a part of the SSPAR. So it means you have to prove that you have the necessary 5 years of experience in any two of the domain out of 5. We have 6 actually we had checked, right? So you have to pick any two domain where you feel that you have the necessary experience. Like might be cloud security operations, or might be the the first domain of cloud concept or anything. Remember one important thing, that if you're already the ICS Square professional from CSSP, I mean you had already obtained the CSSP certification, you don't need to prove this experience. But if you're not, in such case, you have to prove that you have the necessary 5 years of experience in any two of the domain to get that professional certification. There is a 1 year of waive off you can get. 1 year of waive off you can get if you have already some information security or cloud-based certification, right? Yes, if you have CISA or CISM-based certifications, yes, you can actually get for 1 year of waiver. No, as I told Amita that you don't need to get, you already have the CSSP certification. In such case, we had already met with that condition that you don't need to prove this one. But if in such case, if you know, not have, in such case, you have to do that. So this is the one of the another requirement we have. But again, I don't think it's a major thing. I mean, still you can go for the examination, and even if you don't have the necessary experience, you can approach the associate certification. The good thing with the SS Squad that it will provide you 6 years to gain the relevant experience, come back and prove that now you have the relevant experience to get the professional certificate. Right. So even if you don't, you can still get that. Okay. Great. So this
sorry,
is
one question.
what.
So can you hear me?
Mr. Jha. Yes, Mr. Jha.
Yeah. So sorry, what is this 1 year? I understood 5 years, but what is this 1 year mean?
This 1 year waive off I am actually telling. So if you're looking to get some waive off, I mean, let's suppose you have 4 years of experience, but with 1 year you are not able to open. So in such case, you can get 1 year of waive off if you have some security based or cloud based certification. Okay.
Okay.
Plus, if you plus if you have some computer based graduation degree or master's degree there, this is also helping you to get a 1 year of waive off. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. Great. So this is what exactly we have to know, that passing the examination is one point, but also at the same time, you have to prove the necessary experience. Because again, SS Squad is looking to ensure that whoever you are actually going to serve after getting the certification. Okay. That organization is going to get benefited from your experience. Based on that, for that evaluation only, they will provide you the professional certification. So in this entire process, it may take up to 1 month to get your certification. Okay, I mean, after passing the examination, how soon you start this process, it's totally depends on that. But normally it's going to take at least 10 to 15 days. So far, I had seen, I mean, this is the average time talking about. Sometimes it may take more than this time as well. So check it out. So this is the important things. These are some of the important things which we have to know about this certification. Okay. Great. So this is what we have from this. Now, so before I move forward and start the domain number first, which is on cloud concept, architecture, and design. Some important points before I move forward is to understand what's your expectation from this training. I mean, I definitely one of the core expectation I know that you are trying to crack the examination, but apart from that, definitely you are from the different country. I just want to ensure that we all are aware about ourselves, and and I'm also aware about what's your expectation, and based on that, I can move forward. Plus, definitely some of your experience where you have worked, which will help me to understand that how much efforts I have to put for ensuring that you're able to crack the examination. So might be if you can take few of your minutes to introduce us here on this particular platform, it will help me to move forward properly. Right. So might be if you're okay, just going to take some name here. So you can introduce it. Amita, you are on my list on the top. So if you can, please.
Hi everyone. So my name is Amita and I've been working in IT for almost 10 years. My background experience has mostly been in identity and access management and also Microsoft Azure infrastructure. So I already did CISSP in the past, but now I want to acquire skills on the cloud security side and also learn some of the fundamental concepts, especially in terms of compliance. And so therefore, here I am.
Great. Thanks, Amita. Mr. Ankur?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I think your question would be, what are the expectations from this course or
yes, definitely.
Okay. So I am already certified CISSP and have a long experience. I think more than 12 years experience in this security domain. So my expectation would be to first is to pass the exam. That's the most obvious because I have already been already certified as a CSA Cloud Security Alliance Cloud Auditor. I would like to have more information in particular domains, for example, the security operations. So currently I'm responsible for the application security part, and I would like to deep dive in two of these particular domains. So first is application security and second is security operations for more knowledge and enhancement, and but obviously certification.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mr. Ankur. Ash Patel.
Hi, Ashish Patel. I have over 20 years experience in IT. My prime role is head of security IT. I have a CISSP as well. Aim is to, again, learn about more security operations, especially around DevOps and SecDevOps.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. Mr. Ashif.
Yeah, hi everyone. Asif Rehman here. So I have a 15 years of experience, but that too is with respect to the infrastructure, right? So right from building the applications to the deploying the applications in the cloud, right? So that's where my experience lies, and hence I'm here to understand how I can secure the infrastructure which I've been managing since last 15 years. So that's the real goal of it. Why I'm doing this CCSP.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Daniel.
Hi, good morning. My name is
Hey.
Danielle. Yes, this is my 5th year of experience in just doing risk management framework. I am also going to be taking a CISSP soon. This is just to add to my experience, and it's mostly the learning that I need here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mr. Izaj.
Hi everyone. So I am in the IT field for more than 10 years, but I have experience on the other side, like load balancers, firewall. So this is a new field for me, but I have some basic knowledge of cloud. So my whole purpose of this documentation, moving my direction from traditional security to the cloud security.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mr. Cabot.
Hello everyone, my name is Jao Kabiti. I'm a software development manager. I have 10 years experience, 7 years in a cybersecurity reseller, so I have knowledge about SIEM firewalls and all the cybersecurity products, and now I would like to extend my knowledge in security for the software development.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, I think you are using a very short name, Luke, is it? So I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, you're right.
Great.
Hi everyone. My name is Luke. So I'm software engineer and DevOps engineer for like more than 8 years. So I'm here to gain some skill in cloud security. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Muhammad Ali Siddiqui.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed. I have almost 15 years of experience in infrastructure security. Expectation from this course is to develop the core fundamentals of the cloud, to helping customers to migrate to the cloud infrastructure, helping them to ensure and provide the business to be smooth. And so I'll be taking this course to understand all the cloud fundamentals and how to help the customers to ensure that to provide the cloud security services. Also, in the end, eventually expecting to have certification. I'm already CSSP certified. So that's all. Thank you.
Cool. Great. Thanks. Mr. Salvesh.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is Sarvesh and I have 15 years of experience in information security, internal audit. I'm CISA and CISM certified, so I'm more into internal audit. So my expectation is to learn about cloud fundamentals and the nuisance of risk management in cloud, so that when I go for audits, I'm well prepared to figure out the risk areas and to evaluate whether the risk is properly mitigated when the implementation, the first line or the second line is implementing the cloud. So that's the reason I am here. Thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thanks. Seema.
I have around
Hello.
16 years of experience in information security, and I am here to know about cloud concepts and gain more information about cloud security, and of course, clear the exam.
Perfect. Thanks. And on last but not the least, Mr. Tom Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom. I've been a generalist sysadmin for about 10 years professionally, although lots more exposure to Linux and so on before that. I ended up doing security operations in my last long role, and I'm here to get recognition for what I already know and to fill in the bits that I don't know with a nice piece of paper.
Cool. Thanks, Mr. Tom. Okay, so that's it, guys. So now I think we can move forward and start with the session here. Okay, we will be taking some regular breaks as well, just to ensure that we are focused on the content itself. I know this is an online training, and sometime in the online training, hearing the voice is quite boring. So to ensure that we are aligned and we are also focused, we will be taking some smaller breaks as well on a regular time there. Okay. Cool. So with this, let's just start the session first. And after a few minutes, we'll take one small break. So before I start, there is one important thing that just to ensure that we are making this session a little bit interactive. I'm expecting that you are also on the regular basis ask questions whenever you feel that you have some confusion. Don't hesitate to block me and ask me any questions you have in your mind. Okay, it will also ensure that we are doing the bi-directional communication. Nothing is going from my side only, right? That is the most important thing. Okay. Just to ensure that we are also aligned and not only I'm moving, and again, I actually hate the slides to discuss specifically if I do the on-site session. I hate to run my slide. Mostly I'm with my whiteboards. Okay, and here also I used to manage my whiteboard to ensure that we are capable with the training there. Okay. Plus, definitely because it's a kind of cloud-based certification. So one important thing, I'm also going to interact directly with the cloud console, right? So let me just page in front of you. So what I'll do, okay, again, I'm going through Google only. So the website which we can actually go for is the portal.azure.com. Now there are 3 vendors who is very popular in the market right now, right? Now remember, I'm talking about the cloud providers, right? So cloud provider who are actually going to offer the cloud services with the help of their data centers are available around the globe, right? I mean, there are multiple vendors nowadays who actually offer the cloud services. One of the cloud provider is Microsoft, right? And to access that cloud, we have this website, portal.azure.com. This website will help you to ensure that you are able to interact with their cloud services and able to manage their services. At the end of the day, what is happening in the cloud? There are some services created by cloud provider for you, and you're just going to utilize those services to ensure that you're managing data properly, right? That is what the end goal is. So no matter whether you are administrator, system administrator, you have already worked in that area, or you're working in a GRC, governance, risk and compliance, right? Or you're working as a consultant and definitely you're trying to understand the services properly and ensure that where the controls can fit best there and how to protect the information. So for each of you, there is a certain tools available here, which will help you to manage the information properly. And definitely at the end of the day, because it's a security certification, so our goal is to ensure our information is protected, right? From all the set of risk which we are facing around the organization. Now, because one of the key goal is to pass the examination as well. So on a regular basis, I will ensure that I'm throwing in front of you some questions, which is very much having the same kind of difficulty you will face in your examination. I mean the difficulty level, remember I'm talking about. And help you understand what exactly the key point you have to check while giving the response. I can see most of you is already certified in information security. It means you're already aware about the IC square approach of asking the question. Okay. So it's not going to be very tough for you because you had already attempted, but at the same time in the cloud, what kind of concept is going to be relevant for you to understand and accordingly give the response. And to ensure that we are making this session interactive as well, I will be using these tools also to explain most of the concepts. Okay. So with this, I will be starting with a very basic slide. I mean, remember, just for your information, I'm also a certified trainer for 3 different vendors. One is Microsoft, and I used to provide training on Azure security. Specifically, there is a certification from there that is called AZ 500, which is on the security technologies. From AWS, I used to teach AWS security specialty. I'm also a certified professional of the AWS. And I'm also a authorized trainer for Cloud Security Alliance. So you must be aware about Cloud Security Alliance is actually giving you some of the best practices to ensure that your information is safe over the cloud. So you can find me over the Cloud Security Alliance website as one of the certified trainers as well there, who actually used to provide training around the globe. And the third vendor actually used to provide training is EC Council. Mostly all the certifications from the EC Council I had already achieved. I mean, whether it is LPT, License Penetration Tester, or CEH, or Security Analyst, Forensic Investigator, CCSO, anything from that side. Right. So I will try to incorporate some of my experience, which will help you to understand and enforce. But before I start, remember, most of the topics which is there in the CCSP is also there in CCSK, Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge. Why exactly I'm telling you this? Because some of the concept which is really you wanted to understand might be very easily explained in security guidance version 4 documentation. Right. And again, that guidance is freely available on the internet. The good thing is it is freely available on the Cloud Security Alliance website. If you have any goal to crack the examination for CCSK, Certificate of Cloud Security and Knowledge, after completing this training, 60% of the content definitely you are able to cover up from the CCSK as well. Specifically their first domain, which is almost having same content what we are having here. So for the sake of this, for the sake of the knowledge transfer, for the first domain, I will be taking few concepts from CCSK first, just to ensure that we are aware about the basic concepts of the cloud. And on top of that, whatever we have in the CCSP certificate, I mean, cloud security professional certification, that one we are going to cover to ensure that we know we have a proper understanding of all the content which is covered in the domain number first. Okay. So what we have from the domain number first here is that we're first trying to understand some of the basic concept which is really required for the cloud to operate. Okay. So when it comes to cloud, a very simple information which we have to first know is what is cloud. I mean, definitely we are trying to learn the cloud, but what is this cloud is? On a very short and a very big, very concise, definition, we can also use simply cloud is doing processing over the internet. So cloud is a set of service which will help you to process your information or your services over the internet. That's it. It's a very simple and easy definition of the cloud. So on a simple note, cloud is all about doing processing over the internet. That's it. Definitely there's some standard definitions we have also around us. So when I say standard definition, I'm talking about some of the standardization bodies who had actually given their standard definitions for the cloud. We'll come on that. But again, remember your examination is not concerned about like, do you really know the definition of the cloud? So they're not going to check that part. Right? Or they are going to check whether you are really aware about the concepts or the services or the tools or the mechanisms utilized in the cloud. And around that questions are going to be built up. And definitely, even when you're going to work in a production environment, that time it doesn't matter whether you know the definition of the cloud or not. All is going to matter whether you know how the cloud actually process your information. And in which relevant point you have to keep your information safe. So for now, let's understand with this concept only. Cloud is all about doing processing over the internet. Right? See, in the cloud, what exactly happening here? There are two entities involved. One entity A who actually used to consume services. So we can simply say that there is a consumer, cloud consumer, who will be consuming the cloud services. And the entity B who actually offer these cloud services, which is called as the cloud service provider, CSP. Very much similar to ISP, right? Internet service provider or CSP, cloud service provider. So cloud service provider with the help of n number of services offer their service to the customer. And customer will choose any of the relevant service which he is looking to utilize for their organization goal. Will simply pick and consume and utilize that. Whatever you will be consuming from the cloud provider, accordingly, the provider will provide a bill, or you can say the charges. And for that, you have to pay to your provider and you are good to go. So all in all, here I'm trying to say that in the cloud, there are two entities involved. One is consumer and the another is provider. Although I'm just using these two keywords, but definitely we have some more entities involved there. So all, as you know, as we are going to progress, we will try to explain and understand those concepts as well. So we have a consumer and a provider who will offer services and consumer who will be utilizing those services. Now, if you are a software developer, then your requirements could be different. If you are an infrastructure administrator, then your requirement is going to be different. So according to your requirement, because your provider is having n number of services, all you have to pick that service which you are actually trying to utilize, and accordingly, you have to pay to your provider. So do I really going to purchase any hard code product here? I mean, is there any hardware we are purchasing here to manage my infrastructure? No, we are just purchasing the service. And because we are purchasing the service, this is the reason it is known as the service model. Right here, you're not purchasing any sort of product or hardware. So you're not concerned about what is going to happen in the future. What about if that hardware is obsolete? I mean, you might have invested a huge money on a hardware, might be a very high-end server, and after a few years, there is a new set of hardwares available, which is in less money will provide you the faster response. So you are now in a dilemma whether to choose that new product or you have to upgrade the older product where you had already invested the money. If you're trying to upgrade the older product, then you have to invest a very huge money. Why? Because that hardware is not easily available in the market. A very simple example, if anyone of you is aware about from the hardware side, taking about the example of RAM, random access memory, right? We have multiple versions of the RAM here, DDR2, DDR3, DDR4. Currently, mostly in your system, you might have seen the DDR4 or DDR5 RAM. Now, if you're trying to purchase any DDR2 based RAM, okay, you will not find this particular RAM easily in the market. And even if you're trying to get that, they're going to charging you very huge money. Right? So instead of investing money in the old product, it is better to buy a new product with a faster response and with a less money. Now, this is always going to be a situation if you're going to invest your money in purchasing the hardware. In the future, that hardware may go obsolete. But in case if you're purchasing a service, that is not going to be an issue for you. Anytime a new version is available, you can go for that particular new version without any extra charges to be paid to your provider. I mean, this is one of the simple benefit I'm actually talking about. So where we don't have to invest anything on the capital. So we don't have mostly any capital expenses here. All we are investing money in the operational expenses, OPEX. And that is the biggest benefit we are getting here in the cloud. Definitely. I mean, if you're moving into the cloud, one of the features you're looking to reduce the overall costing part. But this is not always true if you're moving into the cloud. Because if you don't control this, at the end of the day, you will be getting a very huge bill, which may go beyond your expectation. And that is the reason if you're purchasing any cloud service, you have to always have a proper look, always have a proper governance over the cloud services to ensure that we are spending money in the correct direction and the resources which is utilized or configured is moving in a correct direction. Right? So cloud is all about doing processing over the internet. And in the cloud, there are two entities involved, consumer and the provider. But when the provider is offering services to you, so let's talk about something on the provider side first. When the provider is trying to offer services to the customer, if I'm talking about the three major provider in the market, and according to Gartner's report, AWS, Amazon Web Service, is on top in the market right now. So you can say they are the leaders who actually offering services to the various different customers. And right now AWS is leading the market. After that, we have Microsoft Azure from Microsoft. And the another one we have is the GCP, Google Cloud Platform. We have many other vendors as well. Like we have Alibaba, We have Oracle Cloud, we have IBM Cloud. So there's very many different providers are actually coming into the market. And they are trying to compete right now. But so far, these three are basically the leading the market. And they are not offering services to thousands of people. They're offering services to millions of people around the globe. And to offer services to these millions of customers, they require a huge capability in their data center. So how the AWS, Azure, or GCP is offering services with the help of data centers, which is located around the globe, right? Around the world, they had already configured multiple data centers. And with the help of these data centers, they are offering services to these millions of customers. As a customer, you might be located in US, you might be located in Australia, you might be located in India, you might be in South Africa, wherever, right? You have an option that you can choose services from your nearest location, from the nearest data center. I mean, let's suppose that I'm trying to configure and manage any services on Microsoft Azure. Let's suppose I'm trying to create a virtual network. So virtual network is what? Is a virtual instance of a network. So if you're creating any resource, that resources can communicate with each other, and at the same time, they can also talk to the internet. Right. So if I'm creating any resource, or you can say service in the cloud, that time during the creation, one of the input they're expecting is that in which region you are looking to configure this service, or you're trying to create this service. And you can see in this drop-down list, it is mentioned that might be I'm looking to configure this service in East US data center, on Central US, Central India, Canada Central, Brazil South, Australia Southwest. I mean, whatever your location. I mean, see, remember, you are selecting the location based on multiple criteria. One, your customers are located in East US. So you want your services to be located in East US. So latency is not going to be a problem. Right. Now, this will ensure that you are able to offer services to your customer vastly. And there is no any complaint you are getting from the customer that they are, not able to access the service, with a proper speed. Right. So what is latency here? So latency basically defines the time delay between the input of any of the commands, or might be the instructions which you are providing, and the output you are receiving from there. And this latency can be affected by various factors such as distance, network congestion. But here we are talking about the distance here. Like if your customers is located in different location, not in East US, but they're trying to access services from East US, definitely it is going to create an issue there while they are accessing the service. They are going to face some slowness. You have a high-end server, but you're still not able to provide proper service to your customer because it is far from the customer itself. So all in all, I'm trying to say that provider is offering services through their data center to their customers. But within that data center, let's suppose that within one of the data center, is it possible for the provider that with the help of one server, they are able to offer services to millions of customers? No, right? So within a data center, let's suppose we have one high-end server, which is equipped with might be 64 different 64 processor, and might be they have 4 terabyte of RAM. So is it sufficient? I mean, these resources is sufficient for offering services to the millions of customers? No. I mean, there is a possibility that only 2 or 3 customers are going to consume all of these resources. I mean, if you're going to offer services to one enterprise, that enterprise might have multiple services to offer to the customer. Like they wanted to configure email services using these resources. They wanted to configure web server using these resources, and very many different products they are trying to consume. Even the firewall is also available in a virtual form. Right? So only one customer is going to consume each of these resources. So it is not possible for a provider to offer services to their customer using only one hardware. So what they do, they are actually going to create a very huge pool of resource and then offer that service to the customer. And for that, it is very much important that they are going to use some basic resource sharing concepts. Like one of the concept which we are using in the case of cloud is called as virtualization. In fact, you can say without virtualization, there is no cloud. Virtualization is the basic need through which you can offer services to your customer. Remember, when you are moving into the cloud, there are some key features of the cloud we have, which we are going to discuss very soon. If those features are available, then only we can say that a particular provider is a cloud provider. Otherwise, if any of the features are missing, we can simply say that these are not the cloud providers, right? So when we are moving into the cloud, your cloud provider is going to offer services to very many different hardware set. But before it is offered to the customer, with the help of a concept virtualization, they virtualize the entire resource. And when I say the resource, I'm talking about the hardware resource. Okay, so within the hardware resource, what we have? So within the hardware resource, typically it is categorized into three parts. One is called as compute. And compute is a collection of two components. One is the processor and the another is RAM. Remember, these are the standard wordings we have, which we are going to utilize. And even in the examination also, you will see these terms. So when they're using the term compute, always think about the processor and RAM only. Okay. The another resource which we require to form the entire cloud network is the network itself. I mean, you have to transmit data from one point to another. You are located in some another country and your data center might be in another country. So how is it possible for me to transmit any data, to store, fetch, process, anything? So again, it is with the help of network we can perform the same activity. Okay. Even the network should be also get virtualized. And the third is storage. Right? So you also have to virtualize your storage network so the data can be stored, plus the data can be moved from one location to another with the help of some sort of virtual hard disk. So when we are forming the cloud, one of the basic need we have is the virtualization. And as I told, without virtualization, there is no cloud. What this virtualization will do, they are trying to virtualize these hardware resources, compute, network, and storage. And then only these resources can be shared over the internet. Otherwise, if it is told that, hey, I need to share my hard disk to another user, it is not possible for me to do that. But now after virtualizing it, I can replicate the entire hard disk from one location to another. Why? Because it is available in a VHD format. And VHD is what? Is a file. And that file can be replicated over the internet. Even you can also, thanks to the kind of internet speed we are getting around the globe, that is also making it possible very much. Right. So virtualization is one of the basic need of cloud. So what exactly happening in the virtualization? So let's suppose this is a hardware, okay, which is having the processor, RAM. Before I'm going to run any of my resources or services here, first thing, this hardware needs to be virtualized. And for the virtualization, there are some tools we are going to install here. Now here, in case in the enterprise environment, where normally we use a tool. So virtualization, remember, is a concept. And to implement that concept, the tool which we are using on top of the hardware is called as the hypervisor. Right? So hypervisor is a tool, or you can say the software, which will help you to abstract the hardware into virtual format. So whatever we have here, which is in a hardware format, is going to be virtualized and it is available in a virtual format on top of that. So you can say now we have a virtual resources. So hypervisor will help you to abstract the hardware into virtual form. That's it. Typically, there are two types of hypervisors available around us. One is called as type 1 hypervisor and another is called as type 2 hypervisor. Type 1 hypervisor, which is also known as bare metal hypervisor. And the type 2, which is also known as hosted hypervisor. So we have bare metal hypervisor and we have hosted hypervisor. So what does it mean? I mean, what is the meaning of bare metal? So bare metal hypervisor means, so non-typically this bare metal hypervisor is running on top of the hardware. So you can say this bare metal hypervisor is having their own kernel. Typically, when you're having any operating system, this operating system is having a kernel and kernel is responsible for activating your hardware. So if you're running Windows 10 or Windows 11 or Linux operating system on your machine, thanks to the kernel, which will help to pass your instruction to the hardware and hardware will perform that action. So if you require any sound output or might be graphics output, that is actually with the help of kernel, you're actually passing it. So bare metal hypervisor is running on top of the hardware directly. And how is it possible? Because it is having their own kernel. So you can say simply, this is my hardware, and on top of that, this hypervisor is running. Okay, and then on top of that, you can create your virtual resources. And you can create n number of virtual resources. Example of bare metal hypervisors are from VMware, which is one of the leading virtualization provider in the market. From the VMware, it is ESXi. So ESXi is one of the leading hypervisor, or you can say the bare metal hypervisor available in the market. But we have others as well, like we have from Citrix, we have Gen Server. From Microsoft, it is Hyper-V. Remember, Hyper-V is also available in bare metal format. Right. So these are some of the examples you can say, which is also another type 1 hypervisor. When I use this term type 2, which is also known as hosted, hosted means there is a machine on top of that you have an operating system, any operating system, like could be Windows or it could be Linux based. And on top of that operating system, you are running the hypervisor, which is hosted hypervisor. And then only you will be getting a virtualization layer. So if this operating system is not running, this hypervisor will also not run. Why? Because this hypervisor is available as an application, And if an operating system is not there, this application is also not able to run. Every time they have to pass instruction, they have to pass it through this operating system only. Example we have is the VMware. From VMware, we have the workstation, VMware workstation. We have open source hypervisor, which is called as the virtual box. Right. And even Hyper-V is also available in the type 2 mode. One example I can simply say here, because I think in my system it's already installed. So one example is this one, If you can see, this is the virtual box on my system which is installed. And you see here in this virtual box. So first of all, I'm also running with Windows 10 operating system on my machine. On top of this Windows 10, I'm running this virtual box, which is an application, And this application will be running multiple virtual machines. So because now we can create a virtual resource, now we can run that, we can use that virtual resource to utilize these virtual machines. And at the same time, I can fire up all these virtual machines at the same time. It is also totally depends on your hardware. Let's suppose you have only 16 gig of RAM and you're trying to run more than the machines which may consume more than that 16 gig of RAM, then it is not possible. Right? So you have to ensure that you have the sufficient amount of hardware available to run these virtual resources as well. Because remember, virtualization will just going to virtualize this resource. It is not going to increase that resource for you. Okay, so this is one example we have for the same. Right, so I hope this is clear. What is the difference between bare metal and hosted? One important thing that all the enterprise cloud providers is going to utilize the type 1 hypervisor, and there are two reasons for that. First, type 1 hypervisor relatively faster as compared to type 2. Why? Because remember, whenever you're passing an extra instruction through extra layer, definitely it is going to be translated first and then only it will reach there. So let's suppose this is a virtual machine you had created on top of the hypervisor. And this hypervisor is dependent on this OS and then only this hardware. So your instruction will pass through this hypervisor to this OS, and from there only it will go to the hardware and then only the task can be performed. But in case of type 1, this extra layer of translation is not required. It is definitely going to enhance the speed. So one is the faster response. And second possible reason is the extra security. Remember, the more and more services you are running, the more vulnerable you can be. I'm not saying that you are vulnerable, but yes, definitely it is possible that you can be vulnerable. Previously, I was only running with hypervisor, but now in the type 2, we have a hosted hypervisor, which is this running with extra operating system. If this operating system is compromised or having some vulnerability, then chances are there that this hypervisor will also going to be compromised. So this time, not only you have to protect your hypervisor, but also you have to protect this operating system. So now the layer of responsibility is going to increase. And definitely the chances of risk is also going to be increased here because of the extra component you are running here. This will add extra burden and definitely the extra resources for the overall computation. Right. This is definitely not good. So in case of production environment, we normally concentrate on utilizing the type 1 hypervisor. Type 2 normally we can utilize for the testing purpose. I mean, as a developer, it will be good for me that I'm going to have a type 2 hypervisor and I'm going to run some virtual resources and run it, test it. Anything goes wrong while doing the testing, I can revert it very easily. Right. So the first and important concepts related to cloud is that cloud is possible because of the virtualization. Why? Because virtualization is going to provide you the abstraction environment, or you can say the virtualized environment or abstracted environment. So your resources or your virtual resources can run easily. Right. Now, let's assume that we have this hardware. And after the abstraction, we have the virtual resource. Similarly, remember, one hardware is not capable enough to provide services to multiple or millions of consumers. So we have multiple hardware. And multiple hardware is running multiple virtual resources. I mean, multiple virtual resources are going to be available now. So let's suppose that each of these is offering you the 4 TB of RAM, right? And now it is the same amount of RAM is available here also. Now what the providers do, providers are going to merge them together and create a huge pool, right? So now if you're going to merge them together, so now if I'm going to add these all 4 virtual machines resources, so I have total of 16 TB of RAM in this pool. Now this pool, this huge pool will be exposed to the customer using the APIs, application program interface. And this API is available to the portal. Like in case of Azure, we are using Azure portal, graphical portal there. So this API is available to the Azure portal, which is in technical term called as the management plane. Management plane. So this API is available to the management plane, and this management plane is exposed to whom? Customer. Now, whenever customer is looking for this resource, they will simply use management plane to interact with the relevant API. And that API will send that instruction to the underlying resource and the work can be performed. Remember, for different resource, we have different APIs. So if you're trying to create network, you're trying to create a storage, for that different APIs are there. So one of the responsibility of the cloud provider is to create a very huge pool of resource to the customer. So the customer will get adequate amount of resource whenever they want. Remember, this is one of the important character of cloud we have, that cloud is going to offer you on demand, unlimited resources. And it is possible if that is available at the provider side only. Okay. So this is what we have here, guys, so far. So just give me a minute, guys. I will be back. Someone is knocking my door here. Sorry for that. Yep, sorry for that. I'm back. So as I told that one of the responsibility of the provider is to ensure that we have a huge number of pool available or the resource available for the customer. So the customer will be utilizing resources as per their need, right? But the question is it sufficient? I mean, is that virtualization is sufficient? Is there any other component also we required? And when we are creating this resource pool, is it only for this RAM? But remember, as I told, that there are 3 basic components which is required. One is compute, another is network, another is storage, right? So when we are creating the resource pool, we actually needed to create the resource pool for each of these, right? But again, virtualization is not sufficient for the cloud because we are using virtualization from the very long time. Even before the cloud, virtualization was the essential part of our life, specifically the network administrator and the system administrator who is used to manage the things. What this virtualization is doing, I mean, with this example, you can see here with this example that with this virtualization, what we can do, we can run multiple resources on my hardware. So let's suppose I want to run this Windows Server, Windows 10, and Ubuntu machine at the same time. I can do that. And what will happen in such case? I'm able to consume all the resources efficiently on my machine. What does it mean? What it means that let's suppose that you are processing only one task at a time. Then you are not consuming the full capability of your hardware. And this is actually the issue with the most of the time with our infrastructure, that we had purchased a very high-end server, but we are not able to utilize their full capability. Right? What is the reason behind that? The reason is most of the time we are running only one services, and that service is not going to consume that much of resource. And even if it is consuming that much of resource, it is not going for the longer time of period. I mean, let's suppose that there is a web server. That web server is right now experiencing might be more than 10,000 or 20,000 customers. So that time your resources might be well utilized. But what about when the customers are not connected? And how often that much of traffic you have on your website? Let's suppose if this is happening only for an hour, within a week, or within a day only, then still you're not utilizing the full capability of your hardware. Most of the time your hardware is sitting idle doing nothing. It means whatever investment you had made, you're not getting full outcome from there. In such case, if my resources are not utilized, I may run multiple virtual machines on top of that. So if one of the services is not being utilized, I can still utilize the other service and my hardware is being utilized properly, right? So this is one of the need or one of the benefit of having the virtualization on our server, which is going to help you to run multiple services on the same hardware without getting conflicted on that machine. So there is a possibility that on the same machine where I have web server, I'm also running FTP, email and other, which is definitely going to create a problem. Because if one of the services compromised, other services are going to be also in question. But what about if I'm running in separate virtual instances, virtual machines? If one of the machine or one of the services compromised, it is not going to impact the another machines running on my system. So with virtualization, you are also creating an isolated environment. Each service is running in an isolated environment, which is definitely going to increase the overall security as well. So virtualization also offer you a proper isolated environment. You can say in a security world, we also using a term that is called sandbox environment, which is an isolated environment where unauthorized instructions can't be executed. Right, which is also one of the security capability we are looking for within our platform. But as I told, virtualization is not sufficient. Apart from the virtualization, we also required automation. In case of cloud, it is very much important that we are also utilizing the automation concept. What is this automation? See, this automation will help you to ensure that we are able to deploy any services without any interaction with a cloud provider. With virtualization, there was one issue that every time I have to deploy any service or features, I have to, connect with the administrator, and then only that administrator will do that. So there is no any facility through which we can automate this deployment. But with cloud, we have, thanks to API and other relevant features, which is actually making it possible. Right. So with the help of tools like orchestration tool, So automation is possible because of the orchestration tools available around the cloud. So with the help of tools like orchestrations tools, we used to deliver on-demand services to our customer based on their need. So instead of relying on the manual process, we can automate that. And it is not only while you're deploying the service, it is also when you have a very complex activity to complete on the cloud and you're relying on the manual, steps. So to perform that complex activity, you can have an automation script in your system or in your cloud infrastructure. Thanks to multiple different tools available around you. Like some examples I can take here is like AWS is using CloudFormation. Right. So with the help of CloudFormation, you can automate the deployment of resources. And what kind of resource? It could be a very complex infrastructure, like you wanted to set up the entire network on the cloud, virtual machines in the cloud, virtual storage in the cloud. All these things you can do within few minutes. But definitely for that, you have to spend a good amount of time first to set up that infrastructure template. If you're looking for some platform independent tools, I mean, it's not like you're only relying on, like CloudFormation cannot work on another platform. But some tools, like one of them is called as the Terraform. It can work with any of the platform, whether it is you are using the Azure, AWS, or GCP. Definitely you have to create a different infrastructure template for each of the platform, but this Terraform can work with any of your platform. And Azure is having Azure Resource Manager templates, ARM templates. Again, all these templates on a layman language, orchestration is automation. Simple, right? You're trying to automate or you're trying to orchestrate your activity, which you're performing on a day-to-day, right? I mean, let's suppose you are trying to perform same activity every day. You can automate these activities with the help of these orchestration tools or automation tools there. Okay. And again, as I told, thanks to these tools which is available around us, which will help you to deploy the entire complex infrastructure within few minutes only. So cloud is possible because of two important components. First is the virtualization, which will help you to abstract the hardware. And the second is the automation. Right. This automation tool will ensure that we are able to deploy the services within few minutes without any interaction with our cloud provider. So this is the another important component we have. So self-service is possible because of orchestration. Right. See, remember, these two components is going to be important component for the examination, specifically from the first one. So now we are aware about that what is cloud. So far we had discussed the cloud is all about doing processing over the internet. So another thing we had discussed, to form cloud provider require abstraction tools, which is available with the help of hypervisor tools. And hypervisor are two types, type 1 and type 2. And we had seen the examples of that, right? But apart from the hypervisors, or you can say the automation, apart from the abstraction tool, we also require the support of orchestration tool, which will help you to automate the deployment of services. Right. Definitely, when you're moving into the cloud, you're looking to get some proper benefit from the cloud. Right. Those benefits are, first of them, that no capital expenses. In case of cloud, when you're moving on, here you're not purchasing any resources, any hardware resources, right? So we don't have to worry about what is going to happen if that hardware is not going to be, trending in the market, you can say. So cloud computing removes the need for a company or the organization to invest in a physical data center. It is the provider's problem, right? It is, remember, as I told previously, that in cloud, there are always two entities involved, cloud customer and cloud provider. So now it is the provider responsibility to build and manage certain facility or data center facility for you, which is having proper power, proper network connectivity, and any other resource through which a customer can access their services very easily. And what the customer will do, customer just going to pay the monthly cost for the same. Yeah, so Mr. Ijaz is having a question. Does API only used to represent the hardware also? No, definitely. It is basically going to represent even the hardware as hardware and software both. Remember, API work is just to ensure that your instructions can be carried to the relevant resource. If you're trying to perform any activity, your request should pass to the relevant resource. An important thing about the API you have to understand here, that because in the cloud, there's so many entities involved, there's so many users involved, then we have to monitor each of the requests as well. So whenever, like, let's suppose a storage is communicating with compute or compute is communicating with storage, that communication should happen through the API only. So all the API activity can be logged, or you can say monitored. And if we can monitor, definitely we can detect the unwanted activity, and based on that, the certain actions can be taken. Right. So don't put in this way. We are not only specifically talking about the hardware. There's so many software tools also available. Like take an example, you might be using your firewall, right? In your organization, might be you're using Palo Alto or Checkpoint, or might be FortiGate or Cisco Firepower, whatever. Right. All these tools is also available in a virtual format in the cloud. Right. And again, with the help of API, you're able to communicate with those resources to interact and manage the services. Whatever instructions you are passing, it is basically with the help of API. Think about an API is like a chef, which is there in the restaurant. Sorry, not chef. Actually, it is the waiter, you can say, who is actually taking your order to the chef, and chef is going to prepare the food for you. And then again, that waiter is going to pass that prepared food to you. API is going to play a very important role here. Right. And definitely all these communication between the chef, waiter, and the customer needs to be monitored for any kind of unwanted or malicious activity. Based on the controls can be triggered. Right. So first benefit.
Yes, sorry. Is that between consumers, or consumers and the provider, or between systems? So that's a bit confusing me. For example, the API uses between one system to another, or between provider or the consumers.
Actually, it is between all. Even the customer request is first coming to the API, right? And API will talk to might be another API as well. Right. So whatever instructions we are passing, let's suppose I'm a customer, I'm trying to access one resource. So I will be simply definitely making a request over the API. Now that API, because the kind of request you are making might be going to talk to multiple API, right, in the backend. So all these activity needs to be monitored. So customer request also needs to be monitored. Plus, if API is communicating with another API, even that one too needs to be monitored there. Getting a point?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the first benefit we have in the cloud that we are not expending any money on buying the hardware. Right. Second benefit we have in the cloud, that cloud is going to offer you very agile environment. So you can say more agility. Right. without having to deal with physically implementing hardware, customers can roll out new application or increase the existing resources instantly. Let's take an example. You are having a web server on the cloud, and that web server right now running with 4 GB of RAM or might be one processor, which is not sufficient. Immediately you can increase that resource without any issue, without any downtime. So it's going to offer you very agile environment, which will ensure that sufficient resources are available always to offer services to your customer. Right? Another benefit you are getting that you can increase the resources almost in an unlimited manner. So you can say unbounded scale. So scaling, actually one of the term we are using. So cloud provider normally don't run out of space or might be the resources. They don't have any set of power constraints. The reason is they have multiple redundant resources available, whether it is for power, for the internet or anything, for storage, for the processor, anything. So they don't need to wait for their storage vendor to send another set of array. Everything is going to be pre-ready, and whenever they feel that they are going to run out of resource, they will increase that for the customer. Right. So mostly here you will be getting unbounded scale because cloud provider proactively ensuring that everything is available before it is going to be too late. So we had rarely seen that customer is complaining that, hey, that in East US location or might be in West US location, we are not having sufficient resource to run my services. From the provider, we are not getting sufficient resources. Yeah, there is a possibility that some providers which you had chosen might be the local cloud provider or something. I mean, specifically the provider who is not very trusted in the market right now, they might be running out of resource. So this could be one of the risk you are facing if you are not working with a good provider. Right. Another good capability we have is improved resource utilization. Right. Remember one important thing that here you can create resource based on your need. It means you can define that for my application to run might be I require 4 GB of RAM. This is sufficient. But the moment the need of the application is increasing, I mean, let's suppose the traffic is increasing, you are going to create a rule which will identify that if the, let's suppose the resource utilization is going beyond 70%, okay, increase that resource. I mean, from 4 gig, increase to 8 gig, and from 8 gig might be increased to 16 gig. So it will always check whether that resource is efficiently utilized. If it is going beyond a certain threshold, it will automatically. So you are always having a proper utilization of the resource what you are purchasing. So you're not wasting your money in the resources which is not utilized properly. And that is what the issue we are facing previously with our traditional data center. Right. And definitely one of the important capability that the cloud is actually offering a very resilient environment. I mean, rarely, I mean, so far you may have your data center already in your organization, and talk to your engineers, experts there who's actually managing the data center to make it run 24/7. How much efforts they have to put. Anything a small component is down, first to identify and then to repair is going to take a good amount of time, and some time because we don't have multiple data centers. If something goes wrong, we might have to wait for 4 hours, 5 hours, or might be the entire day or sometime the entire month because of some disaster, the entire data center is down. I mean, take an example of the recent disaster which just happened in Turkey, right? The earthquake might have turned down multiple data centers there. Definitely, they're not going to offer any services through that data center for now. But if this is the same case happening with any of the cloud data center, they're offering multiple data centers around the globe, and not only the globe, within the same geographical location, they have multiple data centers, which is physically apart from each other. So if one of the region is down, one of the location is down, they can still offer you services from another data center. So that much of resiliency to get with our traditional data center is basically a huge investment. And whenever we invest money, we always calculate the profit what we are getting from there. And that cost and benefit analysis is basically restricting you to provide that much of resiliency. Right? But that is not the case with cloud provider. With a cloud, we are getting that much of resiliency without paying extra. Definitely. I mean, whenever you're trying to migrate from one location to another, and the kind of resiliency you are looking for, accordingly, you may have to pay. Remember, here you don't have any restriction. If you wanted to increase the resiliency, you can do that. But for that, you might have to pay some extra money. But even with the default resiliency, you will be getting the proper uptime. They might offer you or guarantee you 99.9999% of uptime for some of the services as well. And very importantly, pay for use. Whatever you're using, pay only for that. So everything you are using in the cloud is getting monitored, getting billed. Some resources are per second basis, some resources are per hour basis, some resources are per user basis. But what is the good important thing here, that everything is getting billed and accordingly you are going to pay for that. Right. So these are some of the benefits we have when you are moving into the cloud. So no capital expenses, more agile environment, unbounded scale, improved resource utilization, a very resilient environment, and definitely whatever you are using for that you have to pay for. Right. So these are some of the important things which about the cloud definitely initially we have to know. Now here on this note, we will be taking a break here. After the break, we will try to discuss some of the important characters of the cloud, specifically 5-4-3 rule of the cloud. Now, what is this? We'll discuss shortly after the break. I hope that is fine for you all, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So we will be taking a 15-minute break here, and after the break, we will continue with our discussion. Okay. Just for your information, I'm just starting the timer so we can come back on. Thank you, guys. See you after the break. Okay, guys, welcome back. I hope we all are back. Please confirm. Okay, great. Thanks, Eva, for the information. Thanks. Just give it. Great. So let's move on then. So before we went for the break, what we had discussed, what is cloud? What are some of the basic components we required for the cloud? Specifically talking about the compute, storage, and the network. Then we have discussed some of the benefits, what we are getting into the cloud. Remember, we have a lot many more benefit coming it out. These are some of the generic benefit you can say which we are getting into the cloud. Now, because talking about the benefits here, so it's the ideal time when I can actually discuss some of the key features of the cloud as well. As per NIST, as I told that we are actually following some of the NIST standard. So before I move forward and let you discuss about those features, remember each of the cloud provider is actually using their own way of deploying the services, right? And it's not like I like Azure or AWS because Azure interface is a little bit easier. That is the reason I'm using the example of Microsoft Azure. Otherwise, it is okay. You can also utilize the AWS and others. Like in case of Azure, if I'm just talking about to deploy any services in Azure, Microsoft Azure, the first thing I require is resource group. And what is resource group is just a container, right? And whenever you deploy resource group, definitely what you have to do, you have to also select the region or the location where you want to use this particular service, right? NIST has given some standard guidelines for cloud. There is one guideline or there is a white paper available from NIST that is defined under 800-145. So NIST 800-145, they have actually given the definition of the cloud. Now, is these numbers are really important for you to remember? No, right? Just for your reference, that if you're looking for some reference guideline from where actually exactly I'm talking about these information, what is the information source? Just for your information, I'm just, taking these numbers. Otherwise, the book is also okay. You can utilize the book to cover up all these requirements. But because this is one of the codes which is coming from US market, so that is the reason I will be taking more reference of the NIST guidelines there. And even in the entire book, also the NIST guidelines already followed. So as per NIST 800-145, which is discussing what the official definition of the cloud computing. So here you can actually get the definition of the cloud computing. Right. Now, when it comes to definition of the cloud, just for your information, this definition we can consider, right? This definition we can consider for now. Now, according to this definition, if you can see, and most of the words now you may feel it's very familiar to you. So according to this definition, cloud computing is a model, right? Now, whether you say it's a business model, it's a cost-effective model, it's a security model, any word you can actually attach here. Because definitely cloud is actually providing you that many of benefits here. Right? So for now, cloud is a model for enabling ubiquitous, this a particular service which is available everywhere, very easy to utilize, convenient. All you have to just click few graphics there, few words there, and you are good to go for the deployment of that service. And very importantly, it is on demand. It means you don't need to connect with your provider while deploying any service. I mean, let's suppose I'm trying to deploy any of the service here. Let's take an example of this resource group. If I want to create a resource group, do I need to connect with my provider? No. All I have to just click on create, which is ultimately going to hit a certain instruction. And I might be providing a name here like CCSP -01. I'm just providing a unique name here, although it is not required because in my environment, I don't have any other name with the name of CCSP. I can only utilize CCSP only. Also, location I can define here like East US. Next is the tag, which is an optional value, and review and create. That's it. So what it will happen? Without any instruction, without any connection with my provider, I can deploy this service for me and see the CCSP resource group is ready. Resource group here is just like a container. It's just like a folder, which is going to keep the metadata of your resources. So whatever you deploy, like a storage, virtual network, might be application, SQL database, their metadata will be stored here if you're going to choose this resource group while doing the deployment. Right. So do I need to connect with my provider to deploy these services? No. So it's on demand. Whenever you want, it is ready for you and you can deploy. All you need, the information, why you're doing, what is the requirement for the business, and what is the benefit you will be getting because of that. I mean, this much of information, clarity, definitely you must have in your mind while doing the deployment. So cloud is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, and on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resource. So do we have any confusion here now? We had already discussed on that particular part that cloud provider is offering services through their huge pool of computing resource, which is merged and then provided to the customer. So with the help of a shared pool of configurable computing resource, cloud providers are offering services to their customer, which is, available everywhere, very easy to use, and on demand. It means you don't need to connect with a provider to deploy anything. And these resources can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimum management effort or service provider interaction. So, I mean, I don't think anything is confusing in this particular definition for you all, but if there is any, just let me know. But this is what the definitions given there in the NIST white paper, NIST 800-145. And as per their definition, this is going to help you understand how exactly cloud works. Right. So according to this definition, it's very straightforward that cloud is all about managing the services in an automated manner. Right. Similarly, ISO has also given their own definition of the cloud. Although it is not mandatory to remember any definition of the cloud, but just for your information, you can keep it here. Right. And you can see the definition is very similar. Paradigm for enabling network access to a scalable and elastic pool of shareable physical or virtual resource with self-service provisioning and administration on demand. Right. So this is what exactly we have when it comes to the definition there. But in the same documentation, in the same NIST 800-145, there are 5 unique features given there for the cloud. And even that one too, we have to just consider it for the examination perspective. According to this, so we had already discussed potential benefit of the cloud. Okay, Now, this is the NIST model for cloud computing. And this model, you will be getting a reference in another documentation which is published from the NIST, which is defined under NIST 500-292. This is the another working model, which is called as the cloud computing reference architecture. So in that cloud computing reference architecture documentation, and as I told, this is defined under the 500-292. Now remember why I'm actually giving these references, because it will be very easier for you to follow up. I mean, if you are looking for some information and more information about the same, you can simply go and download this documentation, which is freely available on the internet. Okay. And the good thing is that for the entire CCSP, there are some good reliable source of the information is available, which will help you to go through and cover up the things. And if you wanted to know more about that, is very easily available. So according to NIST 500-292, this reference architecture given there. And in this reference architecture, there are multiple information you can see right now here. Right, although we will discuss few more component here. For now, understand, according to this model, we have 5-4-3 rule. I actually use this word to remember this more properly. Right, but again, it is not an official, this 5-4-3 keyword is not an official term for your information. So what is this 5? So 5 is basically these five essential characters of the cloud. So when I use this 5 essential character, it means if you are working for federal government and some cloud provider is approaching you, then in that case, you have to check whether these 5 unique characters or the unique essential feature of the cloud is there with that cloud provider or not. And if it is not, then they're not the cloud provider. They're just the managed service provider, but they are not the cloud provider. Right. So these are the 5 essential characters of the cloud. And it's very much easy to understand now because we had discussed few components already. So let me just take you there, and then after I will come to the now in 5-4-3 model. These are the 4 development models, or you can say the deployment model, and these are the 3 service model as well. Right. So let's discuss first about these 5 unique characters of the cloud. So when it comes to the 5 essential characters of the cloud, so in the 5 essential characters of the cloud, the first character we have is called as the broad network access. Right. What is this? What is this broad network access? Okay. So what is this broad network access? Just give me a minute, guys. Sorry for that, guys. Some disturbance around mic. Okay, so coming to the first feature here, broad network access. What is this? See, the first thing we had already understood that when you are. Yes, correct. Amita is also already told accessible via internet, available anytime, anywhere. Correct. One of the important things we have to know about the cloud, that you don't have to rely on very huge configuration of your system while accessing the cloud. I mean, if you're going to explain, let's suppose you're talking to some technical person and you're explaining the kind of features which the cloud can offer you, right? Then they might ask you, hey, how much the configuration of the device required to configure these features? I mean, to access these features, to utilize this service, it's going to be very huge, right? But it's not the case. I mean, you can access the cloud console using your mobile phone as well, no matter where you are. All you require just the internet connectivity. And if the internet connectivity is there, you can access the cloud services anywhere. You see, I'm not talking only about the Microsoft Azure, AWS, or Google. There are n number of examples on the internet. When you're using Google Drive, when you're using OneDrive, when you're using Dropbox, right, for the file sharing or file upload or whatever, they are actually the example of cloud only, right? Do we really require a very huge configuration of the system for that? No. What we require, just a computing device or just a device which will help you to access that console, which can be possible with using a mobile phone as well. Hello, and the kind of mobile phones which is required to access might be available in just $50 or $100. Right. So to interact with the cloud service, you don't require expensive device. The first thing. Second thing, you require internet connectivity, and it is available anytime for you. Thanks to the cloud provider who are actually maintaining multiple data centers to ensure that this service is available anytime, no matter where you are. After this pandemic, we still working from our homes. And the good thing, specifically with me, and not only with me, even lots of my friends who's in my circle, doing operations from anywhere. In fact, me, when I feel that I'm not feeling well and I have to change my mood to ensure that I'm concentrating my work, sometimes I go just to park and sit there and work from here. Simple. Already, internet connectivity is available everywhere. I just used to connect with my hotspot and I start working from there. I am right now operating from India and my office is in UK. I'm still working from home. And the good thing is that, again, I don't need to rely on a certain locations there. Why? Because most of my organization services are also there in the cloud only. I need to connect with my clients, my customers, to explain any of the new projects or whatever. I just need to connect with Microsoft Teams, explain, and the Teams itself is offering you lots of capability to and tools to interact and explain your things there, which sometimes might not possible very easily with a inhuman connection. Right. So again, thanks to the cloud, broad network access feature. This feature ensured that you can access your services from any of the location, and definitely thanks to the data centers around the globe, which is going to make it possible to any location within few minutes only. Right. So traditional or cloud-based software service is available. The Internet Explorer. All you require what? Just an Internet Explorer, right? Might be your Internet Explorer could be Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome. I'm not sure how many of you are still liking Google Chrome, because I know that Google Chrome itself sometimes consumes a gigabyte of RAM, right? But yeah, we require this lightweight applications to run on your system, and that's it. We are good to go. Until unless you are performing some specialized operations, which may require some specialized tool, you are good to operate with these lightweight tools there very easily. So with a broad network access ensured that we can access cloud services from any of the location, and with the traditional tools available on our system, and which is all very easily available even in the mobile phones as well. Some of the providers have already launched some mobile application as well, like Microsoft Azure. For Microsoft Azure, you will be getting an application on the Play Store. You just download it, log in with your account, and you're good to go. You are good to manage these services. The only thing you should not do with that resolution of your mobile phone is the configuration, because chances of mistakes are there. Because if you're not able to see the characters properly, chances are very possible that you do some misconfiguration, but at least for monitoring, we can rely on that. I used to do that. I used to monitor some of my customer operations very easily with my mobile phone to ensure that everything is going well. And when I am away from the office, when I'm away from my desk, I don't have to, uh, worry about the any kind of downtime or any kind of issues going on in the infrastructure. So this is one of the unique characters which we're looking for within the cloud environment. What else? Another feature we have is the rapid elasticity. Thanks to the scalable nature of the cloud, right? Thanks to the scalable nature of the cloud, it is possible that we can increase and decrease the resource anytime. So scalability is actually one of the terms which defines the ability of your system, your application or infrastructure to handle increased workload or demand without compromising the performance or stability. In a very simple word, with the help of scalability, we ensure that we can increase, or you can say we can allow our system to grow and expand as needed to accommodate the users, the transactions, or the data what we have around us. You never know that at what time you are actually needed huge number of resources, specifically the kind of dynamic environment we are running with nowadays. Take a very simple example of the Amazon websites. And I know, at least I like so much of doing shopping. And I'm very much sure that some of you also like, right? Amazon on a very regular basis used to throw the sales over their products, specifically in the festive season and on a specific day in the week, right? So that time, Amazon expects that the resources of their system is going to increase so much. Because of the huge request coming on their web server or on their web application. So they are ready that whenever this is going to happen, we are going to increase the resource to ensure that we can cope up with the need. Otherwise, if your system is having limited resource, it is going to impact, right? So with rapid elasticity, we ensure that whenever it is needed, the resource is available to you and you can increase and decrease the resource as per the need. Right. Some of the key terms which is associated here, like one is called as scale in and scale out. See what is happening. There is a possibility that you have a resource, like I have a virtual machine here, right? This virtual machine is having with let's suppose two CPU with 4 GB of RAM, right? Now, there is a possibility that this much of resource is not sufficient for me. Now, the moment I need to increase the resource, there are two possibilities. Remember here, I'm trying to ensure that I'm going to provide a scalable environment. So there are two possibilities we have. One is called as a scale up and then one is called as a scale out, right? Now that is the some of the key term we actually use while we are increasing the resources. So there are two approach while we are trying to increase the resource. One is called as the scale up and another is called as the scale out. So this is, you can say, this is the two approaches we follow to achieve a scalability in the computing environment. So what is the meaning of this scale up? Now remember, these are the few of the key terms which is going to be asked in some scenario which might try to confuse you, right? So when I use this term scale up means we have a system which is having limited resource like 2 CPU and 4 gig of RAM. So scale up refers to adding more resource to a single machine to increase its capacity. It means in this single machine, if I have 2 CPU, I will try to increase to 4 CPU. So it can handle more workload or demand. This approach is also known as vertical scaling, right? So they might use this term scale up, or they are going to use the term vertical scaling. So that time you should be clear that vertical scaling is all about increasing the capability of a single machine to handle the more workload, right? And it could be increasing the storage, it could be increasing the RAM, it could be increasing the processor, it could be anything. So we can enhance the capability. Like when you're going to add more memory to a database server, it will improve its ability to handle more queries and transaction without its performance, without affecting its performance, sorry. But here with this approach, there is a problem that might be a machine can be upgraded to a certain amount of resource only, right? Like let's suppose you're using the x86 operating system, then it can't go more than 4 gig of RAM. I mean, I'm not very much sure, but I'm very much sure about this that it may not reflect 8 gig of RAM or 4 gig of RAM, and more than that 4 gig of RAM at least. For that, you require 64-bit of machines only there. I mean, I'm just trying to define you the condition where there's a possibility that even if you're trying to upgrade the hardware, this may not possible. It's not going to reflect in your machine. Correct. So Tom is saying yes, correct, Tom. Here we are trying to ensure that on the same machine, we are upgrading the resource to make it more powerful. Now, forget about right now the images. Images I will be coming it later. Right now, let's focus on the machine itself. Yes, these approaches should be added in the images, but because it may confuse some of us, so let's go step by step, right? So a scale up ensure that we are upgrading the resource to meet the capability of our need. But as I told, that machines is having capability, certain restriction. So even if you add more resource, it may not reflect to your application, right? So in such case, we can actually go for the another approach that is called the scale out. What is this? So when a scale up is called the vertical scaling, a scale out is called the horizontal scaling. What is this? Scale out means adding more machines to a system or to an environment to distribute the workload and increase its capacity. So previously we were trying to add resources in this machine so we can boost up the performance. But here in the horizontal scaling, we are trying to add more machines in the environment, and all these machines are running the same application. So whenever the query is coming, it will be distributing these queries to these machines. Right. It is also going to solve the same purpose. Right. But this time we are not restricted that I'm going to have might be only 4 gig of RAM. I can go more than that, because if you're going to add all of them, let's suppose all of them is going to use only 4 gig. So now we have, if I'm going to add for all the machines, at least I have with this 4 machines total of 16 gig. Right. And I can add more machines like that. So not only it is going to distribute the workload and increase the capacity, but also going to enhance the overall performance, because multiple machines are doing the same thing. And you know, the number of machines you will fire up based on your need. So if the need is still coming up, we can still fire up more and more resource. Yes. It's adding up more and more VMs. One simple example for the same in the Azure we can see here, that is called as the the scaling capabilities there. So this is the service is called as the scale set. But one term which is used by Tom here, and that is called as image. So normally when we try to prepare such things, we actually create a master image here. Right. That master image you have your required service. So whenever you are firing up new virtual machines in the horizontal scale environment, that all new machines is going to have the identical services configured. Right. So if you see this virtual machine scale set, if I'm going for the creation, so there is a rule you will be getting here, the scaling rule. And you see we have an option of initial instance count. It means it is saying how many virtual machine instances you require for now. So here it is defined 2, but definitely you can define as per your requirement. And I can go up to where? 1000. You can see the number of virtual machine, the scale set 0 to 1000. Now remember, this is a soft limit. If you wanted to increase, definitely you can increase more than that by writing to the support team of the Microsoft Azure. Similarly, for same thing is for the other providers as well. So here I can define the instance count, and then I can define auto scaling. So minimum number of instances what you require and maximum number of instances what you require. Let's suppose I'm defining 50. But when exactly it will increase? So the thing is, what is the scale out here? How exactly it is going to be scale out? So scale out is going to happen if the CPU uses is 75% from the last 10 minutes. It means there is a possibility that my machine may go down because of the excessive processor utilization. So to ensure that service availability, I can configure that increase the number of instances by 1. So until unless this CPU usage is going to be below 75%, the number of instances is going to be increased by 1, and it will go up to what? 50. Similarly, if you are going to scale out, definitely some moment you also have to remove that instances, because remember, whenever you are finding up a new instance, for that you are going to be charged. There is a bill associated with that. So the moment that machine is not required, you are going to turn down that machines. Right. So this feature is called as the scale in. So in the scale in, what is happening? If the CPU uses is 25%, then decrease the instance by 1. So this is a condition what we are defining here, and every time it is going to evaluate this condition to ensure that automatically the machines are going to be fired up to cover up your need. Again, thanks to the elastic nature of your cloud, and not only the elastic, it is the rapid elastic, means the moment you need, the resource is available to you. And rapidly deployed to the customer. Right. So this is one of the important capability which we have with the cloud. And again, if you're interacting with any of the cloud provider, you have to ensure that even this feature is also available with them. So 2 features we had seen so far. One is the broad network access. Another is the rapid elasticity. The third feature we have is called the measured service. And it's very straightforward. Whatever you're using, for that you have to pay. So there is a money associated with each of them. In fact, I can show you here. Right now, the subscription which I'm using is called as the pay as you go. I mean, I'm going to pay whatever I'm using. You see the subscription name I'm using here, pay as you go. Right. And I'm the account admin for this particular subscription. If I go here, I can actually analyze my cost. So cost analysis, in the cost analysis, I can see where I had expended my resources so far, I mean money so far, and how much I'm going to build so far. I mean, whatever we had consumed so far according to that. So it is going to help you understand that in which area you are spending more money. So far, the forecasted, okay, forecast is unavailable for me for now, but again, a little bit forecast it is doing is 1,170 INR, Indian rupees, right? And accumulated cost alert you can set. So overall, with the help of cost analysis, you can actually check in which resources you are doing what. I mean, if there is a resource configured, then how much so far you had built. And at the end of the month, you will be getting a particular bill. Now, just to ensure that you're not going beyond the limit, you can also set a cost alert and the budget, which will help you understand and immediately, take some action based on the alert. So measured service ensure that whatever I'm using, everything is measured properly, and accordingly, I'm only going to be charged from the provider. Okay, so measured service automatically control and optimize the resource uses. Leverage a metering. Remember this term, metering capability. Sometimes they might provide you some terms which is just to confuse you. But remember, it is because of the metering capability of the provider ensure that everything is measured properly and accordingly you have to pay. So remember, the official term we have is a measured service. There is no any metered service. So they might give you options in your question which is written metered service, but don't go for that. Official term we have is a measured service, right? Even in the NIST and even in most of the cloud documentation, whether you are learning AWS, Azure or anything else. So overall, I can say here that cloud is a utility based model, which is going to charge you based on what you're utilizing. It's like an electricity bill you are paying, right? Prepaid or might be postpaid, whatever. So whatever you consume, accordingly, you have to pay. And this feature is also very much clear for you. So for now, on-demand self-service, it means here the consumer is unilaterally provision computing capability, the server time, network storage as needed automatically. As I told previously that here, whenever we want to configure and manage the resources, it is available to me and I can immediately deploy. So it is on-demand self-service thanks to the, the automation capability of the cloud. So we don't require any interaction with the cloud provider to configure and manage any services there. And why it is how the cloud can possible. So it is because of the huge capability offered by the provider or the customer. So as a customer, I'm getting a huge number of resources from where? From the provider. So they are creating a huge pool of resource and then ensure that resource pool is available to the customer. So a customer will interact, create, manage resource. That's it. Right. Now remember, sometime exact location of the resource is not under your control. Now remember, sometime only, not every time. Because what we had seen so far that whenever I'm creating this resource, I have an option that I can select a location. At least geographical location I can select. But in some cases, like in software as a service, we have not discussed yet what is the service model. But in some cases, definitely it is possibility that the location option I don't have. It is the provider who will decide for me. But this is not good for you. Because there might be possibility that you are surrounded with lots of regulations. I mean, take an example of Russia, take an example of China. They have a data localization law. And might be this is going to restrict them to share any resource out of the particular jurisdictional area. Right, which is definitely a huge concern for any of the customer. So data localization law is basically a regulation which requires certain type of data to be stored or processed within a specific country or region. It means any company or organization which is collecting such information, storing such information, processing such information must ensure that is physically located within the designated jurisdiction. What is the purpose of this law? is to ensure that we will promote the data security, privacy, and sovereignty. Remember this term. Sovereignty, which ensure that your data remains within a certain jurisdictional area. And it is because there are multiple cyber attacks nowadays happening. With this law, with such regulations which ensure that the privacy of the data should maintain properly. Why I focus this term, because over the time I had seen these terms has been repeated in the examination question. You should be aware about that, what sovereignty is meaning for you. Cool. So these are the 5 unique characters of the cloud. You know, if you want to remember, simply you can remember with a keyword, a BROM. I used to remember use this BROM. Broad network access, rapid elasticity, resource pooling, on-demand self-service, measured service, right? So this you should remember, because these are the essential character of the cloud. So they might ask you the question that, hey, cloud provider is having a few unique features. Which out of that is one of them? So such questions you may get in an examination. So for that, you should be aware about what are these essential characters of the cloud. Okay, so far what we had discussed is the essential characters of the cloud. It's very much important that we should aware about. There is an emergent property of the cloud. Right. This emergent property is not good, but at the same time required to ensure we are getting a low cost options in the cloud. So what exactly this feature is? So this feature is called as multi-tenancy. What is this? So it's actually one of the software architecture, you can say here, or a kind of architectural style, which allow multiple users or tenants to share a single instance of the application while keeping their data and configurational separate and secure. So again, for your information, it's a software architecture which ensure that multiple tenants, remember cloud is a multi-tenant model. It means multiple tenants are using the same platform at the same time. And even sometimes same application is also shared by multiple customers, at least in case of software as a service. So when you're using Microsoft Word over Office 365, that Word is you are using the same instance of the application which other customers are using, but it ensured that your data is always remains private. Right. But now you can see and understand here that if I'm sharing the same instance of application with you, there is a possibility that some of you who is expert in cybersecurity can breach that control, and they can compromise the data which is available for the other customer. So is that chances are there? Yes, definitely there. It means it is the provider responsibility, cloud provider responsibility to ensure a certain set of controls had been configured to ensure that such breaches is not going to happen. And how is it possible? So for that only, cloud providers ensure multiple control. Like one of them is policy driven enforcement. Remember, everything, any control we are implementing in our organization is actually coming from the management, senior management. They will show the interest. Accordingly, a certain policy will be designed that will be enforced in the organization, and accordingly the control will be configured. Now I will be discussing more on that policy, standard, guideline later in the upcoming section. But what we have to understand here, anything which is enforced in the organization should be coming from the top to down, not from down to up. So even as a system admin or might be as a network admin, I'm aware that this is a concern. I cannot force any control on my organization. I can suggest my management that, hey, this is the issue, and I have a certain set of control for that, which can resolve that issue. Now it is the management who will decide that we have to put a control, and for that might be we have to design a different policy. Remember, a certain enterprise organization might be having thousands of policy there. Incident management policy, disaster recovery policy, business continuity policy, data classification policy. There are n number of policies we have there. And why this policy is coming? Because they had detected a certain risk. Based on that risk, they had designed a high level policy which define the intent of a particular policy, what we are trying to do. And accordingly, a certain standard had been selected. And with the help of certain best practices available in the market, we had implemented the control. So multi-tenancy is a risk also for the customer. And because the infrastructure is managed by the cloud provider in case of cloud, specifically with a public cloud, so it is the provider responsibility to ensure that they should enforce some policy for this issue to resolve. So multi-tenancy is a risk. And because of this risk, data privacy can be compromised. To ensure this is not happening, we first have to deploy a certain policy. This policy will enforce a certain control, and that control is a segmentation. What is the segmentation? So segmentation ensure that we have a certain control, configured here. Now, what is this segmentation? See, when it comes to segmentation will help you to create a separate directory for each of the customer. Right. So its segmentation is one of the practice, or you can say security practice, of dividing a cloud resources into smaller and more secure format. Or you can say it's a way of control to limit access to resource and data within a cloud environment by providing a certain boundary, logical boundary there. So let's suppose I have a certain storage. In that storage, I have to offer services to multiple customers. So what I'll do in that huge storage, I might create a separate directory for each of the customer. Right. This directory ensure that every customer will store and fetch data from their own respective directory only. But is it going to be sufficient? It is like you had created a directory, but there is no any control given on top of that. And because of that, even you had given instruction, but the customers will go and access the data from the another directory. So we have to put a control on top of that. Sorry. We have to put a control on top of that. This is called the isolation. This isolation ensures that on top of this directory, there is a certain access control implemented. Now remember, access control is a minimum control I'm talking about. It could be anything. It could be encryption as well. But put some control on top of this directory to ensure that even if other customer want, they can't access this directory. First thing is that segmented directory should not be visible to the other customer. Second thing, we should have a proper control over that to ensure that is not accessible to the other customer. So create a separate directory is all about segmentation, and isolation is putting control on top of that. So this segmentation and isolation is a control to manage the multi-tenancy issue in a multi-tenant environment. Remember, because of this multi-tenancy only, you are getting the low cost service in the cloud. How come? Let's suppose I'm having a huge pool of memory from the provider. I'm consuming 2 GB of RAM. When I'm done with the task, I will simply free that resource. So it is back to the pool. Now the same resource is used by the another customer. So what is happening at any moment of time, this resource pool is shared with multiple customers. If any of the customer require, they will simply take the resource and they will consume it. And because of this, the amount of money you are paying to the provider is less because you are consuming only a certain amount of resource. Think about that this entire pool is dedicated for you. And because it is dedicated for you, whether you're using or not, every time it is dedicated for you, it cannot be shared with another customer. So if provider is providing you this service in low cost, they will not getting any benefit. But with this approach, anytime the resources are always utilized. And because of that, they will be getting benefit as well. So multi-tenancy is giving benefit to the provider. But this multi-tenancy is also giving benefit to the customer as well, because with this approach only, they have to pay less money. But definitely there is a security concern we have. And to tackle this concern, provider have to ensure that a proper segmentation is happening around that resource and proper isolation is happening around the resource. On top of that, we will put a governance. Remember, we are implementing a control. It is like you are implementing antivirus on your system. After installing antivirus, after configuring antivirus, so are you sure that you are secure? Not possible every time, right? So what is happening here? That we have to put a governance control on top of that. This governance control ensure that we are monitoring the activity over the resource as well. And also we ensure that we are verifying that the control we have given or configured is really adequate for the managing that risk. Because over the time, there might be a possibility a new risk is getting introduced. And because of that new risk, definitely a new concerned area also going to be introduced. With governance, we ensure that we are continuously monitoring. And if there is any new things detected, we will be taking action immediately. Right. So after implementing the control, we have to ensure that proper governance control is there. Right. Which ensure a proper care has been taken on top of whatever we are implementing. Right. Then we have service level. Right. Now, remember here we are using a pooled environment, or you can say shared environment. Cloud provider needs certain mechanisms. So among the tenants, we assure that they will be getting a promised service level. I mean, let's take an example. You purchase a 2 gig of RAM from the multi-tenant resource, but you're not getting 2 gig of RAM. You are getting only 1 gig of RAM there. Is there any possibility? I mean, you may had experienced that issue that you're using a broadband connection in your home or in the organization. Provider has committed you 100 Mbps of speed, but you are getting only 50 Mbps at a time. Why? Because they are sharing that bandwidth multiple customers with multiple customers. So if all the customers are active at the same time, you may not get that promised bandwidth there. I mean, this is the case always happening with a shared connection. But here in case of cloud, you can't afford such things, because less than 2 gig of RAM might not be adequate to run your application. And it's because of that your system may go down. So we require a certain service level. So ensure that whatever minimum I'm looking to get from the provider, that is always available to me. And if it is less than that, definitely there is a penalty they have to pay. The provider have to pay some penalty for the such. And because this is a billing model, so definitely accordingly we are going to be charged. According to whatever we are consuming, we are going to be charged. So provider always measure the things and accordingly they are going to charge you. So these are so apart from the 5 essential characters we had seen, this is the another emerging property of the cloud, which is multi-tenancy. And because it's one of the concern area, one of the risk we have in the cloud. Now, by the way, I'm very much sure that all of you are aware about, but just over is new here. Risk, I had not yet discussed, but I will be discussing very soon on that. Risk is all about the possibility of a certain event. And because of that, any negative consequences happening there, called as the risk. So risk is all about possibility of an event and negative consequences because of that. Right? Like there's a possibility here that whatever the segmentation control given there by the provider, that is not working, and because of that the data may get compromised of the consumer. Right? So event is segmentation not working, and impact is data leaked. Now this is definitely going to create an issue for the customer. So such risk they can't afford. Specifically with a cloud, this is going to be a big risk, because if it's not happening, think about like millions of customers are relying on a certain provider. It means millions of customers' data can get compromised. So this time the risk is very huge. So we can't afford to have such risk on the cloud. It's going to impact not only the customers, but even the provider. I mean, let's suppose that such a certain risk is happening with Microsoft Azure. Do you think that Microsoft Azure is going to be survive in the market after that? No. Right. So that is the reason they are actually maintaining a very strict baseline security on their infrastructure. And their engineers, security engineers, specifically nowadays, we actually have a certain different teams, a red team, blue team, purple team, who actually ensure that we are safe. We are doing simulated attack. We are doing bug bounty, just to ensure that security practices has been followed and we are secure there. Right. So these are all the different features we have with the cloud. Similarly, definitely always there are some regular issues are there, right? That is what exactly, making the payment for the security engineers. If all issues are not coming, they will think that, hey, we don't require security engineers, we are safer, right? Yeah, so let's move on. So what we had discussed so far is the unique characters of the cloud, essential characters of the cloud, and one of the emergent property, right? But apart from that, do we have anything? Remember 5-4-3 model I had discussed, right? And the next thing we have actually a service model. Now remember one important thing you need to understand, that cloud is a service-based model. It means it is offering you services. It is offering you product as a service. A simple example we can take here, you might have utilized and you're already utilizing, you might be utilizing cab services around your location. So whenever you need to travel somewhere, instead of driving your own car, you might take the service of the cab and you will simply travel to the location where you want to go. Right. Similarly, whenever you require food, you might be using some food-based application who actually used to deliver you the cooked food, or might be the necessary materials through which you can cook your food. So nowadays we actually get into the service-based model where we get the services there, and what kind of service you're looking for, accordingly the charges are going to be defined. I mean, let's take an example that a particular restaurant got an order from 3 different customers for the same food. So what they will do, they will not cook their food separately. They will cook food at the same time for all the 3 customers, and they will simply divide their portion of the food and deliver it. With this approach, the amount of money definitely going to be reduced. Right. So when you're working in a cloud is actually a service based model, because here we are getting all the products in the form of service. Now, it totally depends on you, how much control you require over that service. So when I say control, it means you will decide where to keep the service, how to keep the service, how to manage the service. This is totally under your control. And the another thing is how much money you are looking to pay, how much regulations you are surrounded with. There's some organizations I know who is actually surrounded with so many regulations. So they are very much afraid when they're moving into the cloud, because they never know when that one risk is going to come, and because of that, the entire structure of the organization is going to be in question. Right. So when you're moving into the cloud, you have to decide based on this factor. So far, keep only two factors. One, control, how much control you require, and the second, how much money you're looking to pay. So there are three service model we have. One is called as infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Another one we have is the PaaS, platform as a service, and another one we have is the SaaS. On a very simple note to understand this structure. See, organization normally have a certain data center, or you can say certain hardware first. This hardware is having what? Hypervisor. Remember hypervisor, virtualization platform? With the help of virtualization platform, you are going to run one VM. That VM will be running on operating system. That operating system is going to have application. Right, at the end of that, this application actually going to process your information, and this application is going to have your information getting processed. That information you may protect using the IAM, identity and access management. See, on a high level, I'm just defining this component. At the lower level, definitely you can more and more component, right? It's fair to say, take a simple example. Now we already know cloud is a shared responsibility model. It means provider and customer both are involved. So when we are working with IaaS, so remember, when you're going for the IaaS as a customer, then you require more control over the infrastructure. It means your provider will manage only the hardware and the hypervisor for you. The rest of the things is going to manage by you. It means the customer will create their own VM, will install the OS, install the application, manage the information and configure the IAM. Right? You see, you're getting more control. More control means more visibility. More visibility means you know that what is happening, how exactly it is happening. This is required when you are surrounded with lots of regulations, because you have to provide lots of log to prove that you are doing proper due diligence, proper activity to secure your infrastructure. So you require proper visibility, go for IaaS. But here, in such case, what will happen? You are creating your own VM, operating system, application. It means the cost will increase, because when you are installing the OS, you have to purchase the license as well. Even for same for the application also. Right, identity and access. I mean, each of the component you're installing might be to secure it. You're going to also configure firewall, IDS, IPS, identity services might be. For all of that, the extra license is going to be added up, which will increase the overall cost. So it is costly model. So initially, you can say when you start, let's suppose that you're using this infrastructure for an hour. So for an hour, you will be getting a very low cost. But when you definitely you are configuring this infrastructure not for 1 hour, might be for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years, and that time the cost is going to be very huge. So initial cost for such model is going to be lower, but for the long run, it is very expensive. But what is the good thing here? Proper visibility. You know what is happening where, how exactly happening, and you have total control over that. Next we have is platform as a service. So when you're going for the platform as a service, in case of platform as a service, what will happen? In case of platform as a service, what will happen here? That this hardware, hypervisor, VM, OS is managed by your provider. And after that, this application, info and IAM is still managed by you, customer. So in case of platform as a service, provider will provide you a certain platform on which you can run your application and conduct your activity. So might be you will be developing an application, you just run it here, or might be you will be using this platform to develop any application, whatever approach you will. But what is the good thing here? The provider will provide you the necessary platform to run your application. So necessary, whatever happening in this OS and VM, you're not aware about. Nowadays, the good thing is that some providers are coming with a solution that they can provide you some visibility. But for that also they are charging you extra, which is at the end of the day, the same cost coming it up, at least definitely less from the IaaS, because here you're not calculating any costing part. But if you require a low cost model, go for SaaS, because here even the application is also managed by the provider. It means you are responsible for the information and IAM. Remember, no matter which service model you are using, IAM, identity and access management and information is always your responsibility. Right? It's always your responsibility. But here in the SaaS, normally the costing is based on per user basis. And mostly with PaaS and IaaS, it is resource basis, and again for per minute or for per hour basis. So definitely when you're going for the SaaS, here the charges are going to be less. So less expensive option we have SaaS, more expensive option we have IaaS, and somehow middle ground between them we have is the PaaS. Right. So we have these three service model. Now remember, in the upcoming section, we will be going deep into that because we have a separate chapter over the PaaS and IaaS to discuss. But for now, at the higher level, what you have to understand that what is the difference between IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. We will be discussing more on that. What is the benefit? What are some of the demerits might be? But I think for the first day, this is quite sufficient. At least we know that from where to start with. So I think here we can stop. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, it's okay for me. I don't know for the others.
Definitely.
Okay for me too. Can we have a recap for 5 minutes?
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Yeah, so far what we had discussed is this, what exactly the cloud is. What we had discussed is the different characters. So let me show you what we have so far discussed. So far we had discussed on that there's different resource pools which we are managing. Specifically, remember these three categories: compute, storage, and network. Compute, specifically defining the processor and RAM. Network is all about the network configuration and the transfer speed and others. Another one we have is the storage. Okay. Then abstraction and automation we had discussed on how exactly it will impact our infrastructure. Then the definition of the cloud computing we had seen. Some of the potential benefits we had seen of the cloud. And then the this 5-4-3 model. Remember that two documentation I had referenced so far. NIST 800, 145 and 500, 292. 500, 292 still needs to be discussed. I have not yet covered. But reference architecture we need to discuss, which is going to define even the roles and responsibilities as well, which is very much important for the governance. So far, this is what we had discussed. So different characters. Right, and then this multi-tenancy feature, which is policy-driven investment, segmentation, isolation, governance, and service level, and even chart building mode. Right, it means in our upcoming section we will discuss the different benefits of the service model and the roles and responsibility, and then there is some reference architecture which will help you to set up the organization cloud. That one too, we will try to check it out. Okay. I hope that is fine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Can you please share the slide deck? This one, the slides. After.
Yeah, I will create a separate directory and then I will share the recording for today. And even so, is it going to be okay if I can share it tomorrow?
Absolutely fine.
Yeah,
absolutely fine. You can share the video, the recording anytime, but the slide decks are something we can refresh over after the class.
Definitely, I will share. Okay, cool guys. So enjoy the rest of this. I know that.
Yeah,
Mr.
Do we have a special session on IAM.
Yeah, we will be covering. Yeah, definitely. We have a session on IAM. We will discuss that what the purpose of IAM high level and what are some of the components which will help us to improve the security of the cloud with the help of IAM. So remember, IAM is also one of the control, and because it's a control to ensure the risk is managed properly. So we will discuss even that one too.
And what topics are we going to cover in which classes? Can we have
Okay.
that overview?
So if this is one of the thing, definitely then in such case I will define tomorrow. I mean, see, definitely the first chapter I'm going to take little longer there because this is the base for each of the topics we are going to discuss.
Right.
Okay. Once we are good on the first domain, some subsequent domains are having repetitive topics, specifically the domain number 3 and domain number 5. We're having some topics which is repetitive. So that time I will not spend that much of time, but this here I will spend a good amount of time to ensure that each of the concept is clear for you all. So when we cover up again, just a refresher for you to ensure that everything is on track. But I will let you know what are the topics we will be covering in which session.
Like we covered segmentation and different controls. Are we going to cover them separately as well, right? So how do we do the segmentation?
Yeah, I see here on the high level, I had defined how the segmentation and what's the isolation. But at the lower level, when we are going to discuss about the network or some of the component which I had discussed, that is going to be more clearer. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Tomorrow same time, right?
Yeah, tomorrow same time. Great. So yeah, thank you guys. Or I hope the pace of the session is okay for you all.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was absolutely fine. And yeah, you explained very well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Okay, so thank you guys. See you tomorrow then.
Yeah, have a nice
Thanks.
day. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, man.